Back when I was studying for the LSAT, one of the reasons I was so stressed about it, one of the reasons I gave it so much attention is because I was terrible at logic games. I think the first game section I tried, I did worse than if I had just guessed randomly. So that's one reason, one motivation why I ended up spending several months studying for the LSAT, focusing primarily on logic games. I was actually a bit better at logical reasoning and reading comp because I'd been reading for my whole life. But games, I was not a quantitative oriented person. Games did not come naturally to me. And so the fact that games are not going to be on the LSAT this August could be great news for anyone out there taking the LSAT this fall. Because if you decide that you're not going to let the lack of games prevent you from giving it your all, you're going to be at a relative advantage compared to those who think to themselves, oh, the LSAT's going to be easy now because there's no games on it. If you recognize that the LSAT is still the number one factor in the admissions process, and you're still going to devote the same study you would have devoted to it otherwise, even if games had been on the test, you're going to be at a relative advantage compared to those who pass off the LSAT or write it off as not being as hard as it otherwise could be. In other words, if you recognize that the LSAT is still a challenge worth taking on, even though logic games is no longer on the test, you're going to be willing to give it more than those who think the LSAT is no big deal. If you've taken an LSAT practice test, if you've taken the LSAT for real before, you probably know at this point that logical reasoning is not a walk in the park. Reading comp is not as straightforward as it might seem either, that even without the logic game section on the LSAT is still a challenging test, still worthy of respect, and still worth giving it your all. Now, the LSAT, of course, there are less than 3 months until the August test. Logic games will no longer be on the exam. Instead, it's replaced by a second scored logical reasoning section. So the new format going forward is going to be 2 scored sections of logical reasoning, 1 scored section of reading comp, and then 1 unscored extra section of either logical reasoning or reading comp. And so if you're looking for a 175 or above, the simple approach you could take is still give the LSAT as much attention as you would have otherwise, even if games was still on the test, only now devote 2/3 of your LSAT prep time to logical reasoning, because it's going to be 2/3 of the test, and any gains you make in your understanding of logical reasoning will be doubled across those 2 sections of the test. Now, of course, in the logical reasoning section, there are roughly 15 different types of questions, but not all 15 are of equal difficulty or of equal frequency. The most common logical reasoning question types are necessary assumption, inference, and flaw, meaning you want to make sure that you knock out your understanding of those question types, that you are able to consistently get super high accuracy. I'm talking 70-80% plus on these question types before you even bother with those rare question types that hardly ever show up, like parallel, like evaluate the argument. The more abstract types you don't want to deal with until you've already nailed what's going to show up most often. And of course, since every question is worth the same, there is no reason to place inordinate stress on a question type like parallel that only shows up maybe twice per section, whereas necessary assumption might show up 5 times in a single section of the test. Now, the other thing you should consider is that the LSAT is offered 4 consecutive months this fall. It's going to be in August, September, October, and November. You could take any of those 4 LSATs and still apply early enough in the cycle, and you could theoretically take all 4 of those exams if you wanted to. Not that I'm recommending it, of course. I think maybe taking 2 or 3 of those would be more than enough, but know that you have that option available to you if you have not taken the LSAT before. Of course, there are retake limits. You can take the LSAT 5 times in 5 years, so just consider what your previous LSAT history involves when deciding going forward. But you might want to say, I'm going to aim for August, then have September as a backup where I'm already signed up for it, just in case anything happens with a bad proctor, with a tech issue, just for peace of mind, knowing that you have that in your back pocket. At LSAT Unplugged, we help students create personalized day-by-day study plans, laying out exactly what to do every single day between now and your target test date. If you're interested in finding out more about what our plans look like and how to join our programs with live small group coaching sessions and one-on-one coaching as well to help you hit that 170 plus, you can check out the links below the video to find out more and to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out. Now, when we look at what your study plan is going to look like over the next 2 to 3 months or so, I would recommend considering the three primary phases of LSAT prep: accuracy, pacing, and endurance. Accuracy is where you understand the proper question stem type, the proper approach to each of those 15 or so types of logical reasoning questions. Maybe you're drilling questions by type. You then move on to pacing, doing timed sections with 35 minutes under standard timing. Then you put it all together with full-length exams to help build up your endurance. If you've got roughly 3 months till the test, maybe month 1 is accuracy, month 2 is pacing, month 3 is endurance. Again, generally speaking, focusing 2/3 of your studying on the logical reasoning section, since of course that's what the exam is going to be like for the foreseeable future. Anyway, folks, that's all for now. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.